You don't lose emotional control because conflict is intense. You lose it because command was never there to begin with. Most men believe emotions overpower them in the moment, that anger hijacks them, that pressure makes them irrational. This belief is comforting because it turns collapse into an accident. The truth is colder. Conflict does not change you. It reveals you. When voices rise, when respect is challenged, when the situation tightens, your emotions don't suddenly appear. They were already there. What disappears is structure. This is stillness and direction. If you're here looking for emotional coping tips or ways to calm yourself down, this will feel wrong. But if you want to understand why some men remain immovable in conflict while others unravel instantly, stay. And if this way of thinking resonates, like the video and subscribe, not for motivation, but to train your mind to hold command when pressure arrives. Here is what most men never accept. They are only calm when nothing challenges them. Their control depends on environment. That is not control. That is convenience. Real emotional control is measured only under threat. The Japanese understood this centuries ago. They never asked, "How do I calm my emotions?" They asked, "Who is in command when conflict appears?" Because emotion itself is not the problem. Emotion is energy, and energy always obeys whoever holds authority. Modern advice teaches suppression. Breathe it away. Count to 10. Hide it. This works only in low-pressure situations. Under real conflict, suppression collapses because suppressed emotion does not disappear. It waits, and when it returns amplified. The Japanese rejected suppression completely. They believed any emotion you must hide already controls you. Instead, they trained kokoro seigen, command over the inner domain, not emotional silence, authority. They believed the heart, kokoro, was a territory, and territory without command invites invasion. This is why Japanese warriors could face insult, threat, and danger without emotional leakage. Not because they felt nothing, but because emotion did not dictate action. This is the difference modern men never understand. They confuse calm with control. Calm is fragile. Control is structural. Calm shatters under pressure. Control absorbs pressure. If conflict makes you reactive, defensive, loud, or impulsive, it's not because you're emotional. It's because no internal command exists, and conflict exposes that instantly. This chapter should unsettle you because it removes a comfortable excuse. That situation made me lose control. No situation can take what you never had. In the next chapter, I'll show you why suppressing emotion always fails and why modern emotional advice quietly trains men to collapse when conflict becomes real. Most men believe emotional control means pushing emotion down. They tighten their jaw. They force their voice steady. They tell themselves to calm down. And for a moment, it looks like control. It isn't. It's containment without command. Suppression does not remove emotion, it postpones it. Every emotion you push below the surface stays active. It watches, it waits, it gathers pressure. The Japanese understood this long before modern psychology. They believed suppression was dangerous because it creates a false sense of mastery. You feel in control until you aren't. This is why emotional collapse is usually sudden. Men don't slowly lose control, they snap. Not because emotion appeared unexpectedly, but because it had been accumulating unchecked. Modern advice encourages this failure. Don't show anger, stay calm, control your reaction. These instructions sound disciplined, but they rely entirely on willpower, and willpower breaks under real conflict. When insult becomes personal, when pressure is public, when stakes are real. Suppression collapses because it requires constant effort, and effort cannot survive sustained pressure. The Japanese rejected suppression completely. They believed that any emotion requiring concealment already has authority over you, because you are reacting to it, even if that reaction is silence. This is the critical distinction most men miss. Suppression is still obedience. You are still adjusting behavior based on what emotion demands. Kokoro Saigen does not do this. It does not silence emotion. It places it beneath command. The Japanese treated emotion as raw force: anger, fear, aggression, excitement. None of these were considered bad. What mattered was whether they were directed. Undirected force causes destruction. Directed force creates power. Suppression leaves force undirected. It seals it in a container with no outlet and no authority. Eventually, the container fails. This is why suppressed men are unpredictable, calm for weeks, explosive in seconds. The Japanese sought predictability. They wanted emotion to exist without ever hijacking action, so they trained command, not calm. Emotion was allowed to rise fully, but it was never allowed to decide. No immediate action, no impulsive speech, no rushed movement. Emotion could exist. Behavior did not change. Over time, emotion learned something crucial. It no longer controlled outcomes. When emotion realizes it has no leverage, it loses dominance. This is the opposite of suppression. Suppression feeds emotion importance. Command starves it. This chapter should be uncomfortable because it destroys another comforting belief that hiding emotion is strength. It isn't. Strength is when emotion can exist at full intensity without changing who gives orders. In the next chapter, I'll reveal Kokoro Saigen itself, how the Japanese established absolute command over the inner domain, and why this system feels cold, strict, and offensive to modern men. This is where emotional control stops being advice and becomes authority. The Japanese did not try to manage emotion. They ruled it. They called this rule Kokoro Seigen, command over the inner domain. Not balance, not calm, authority. The heart, Kokoro, was treated as territory, and territory without command invites invasion. Modern men think emotions are weather. They arrive, they pass, you endure them. The Japanese saw emotions as force. Force does not disappear on its own. It either serves command or it commands you. This is where Kokoro Seigen begins. Not by changing how you feel, but by establishing who gives orders when feeling appears. The first failure in conflict is not intensity. It is automatic obedience. When anger rises and the voice follows, command is gone. When fear appears and posture collapses, command is gone. When pride is challenged and speech rushes, command is gone. Emotion isn't the enemy. Obedience to emotion is. Kokoro Seigen built hierarchy. Emotion exists. Command stands above it. This hierarchy was enforced through the body. Posture did not change under pressure. Breath did not spike into urgency. Movement did not rush to satisfy ego. These were not habits. They were laws. The Japanese believed the body obeys command faster than thought, so command lived there first. If the body stayed ordered, emotion had no path to hijack behavior. This is why form mattered so much. Form was not ceremony, it was control. Modern men try to control emotion from the mind. They analyze, they reason, they explain. The Japanese controlled emotion from the outside inward. They stabilized posture, they fixed breath, they slowed timing, and emotion lost leverage. This is why Kokoro Seigen feels cold. There is no venting here, no expression for relief, no permission to get it out. There is containment. Emotion is allowed to exist, but it is not allowed to speak. It waits, and waiting weakens it. Most men believe ignoring emotion is unhealthy. The Japanese believed obeying it immediately was weakness. They trained delay, not hesitation, commanded pause. Emotion could surge, command did not move. Over time, emotion learned its place, not because it was punished, but because it was never obeyed. This is kokoro seigen in practice, not emotional silence, not numbness, authority that does not negotiate. This chapter should unsettle you because it removes a deeply modern belief that emotion deserves a voice in every moment. The Japanese believed emotion deserved discipline, not expression, and this is why their control held under real conflict. In the next chapter, I'll show you how this command was protected under pressure, how posture, breath, and timing became armor that prevented emotional hijack when provocation intensified. Command does not fail because emotion is strong. It fails because structure is weak. The Japanese understood that emotion never attacks directly, it enters through gaps. A loose posture, a rushed breath, a moment of uncontrolled timing. These gaps are permission. When conflict appears, insult, pressure, threat, emotion looks for a path to action. If structure is intact, there is no path. This is why kokoro seigen was never mental alone. It was physical first. Posture was law. The spine remained upright, the shoulders stayed set, the head stayed level. Not for appearance, for control. A collapsing body signals surrender before a word is spoken. The Japanese believed the body decides before the mind, so command lived there first. Breath came next. Emotion hijacks through breath faster than thought. Shallow breathing accelerates reaction. Irregular breathing amplifies impulse. The Japanese trained breath to remain even under pressure. Not slow, not dramatic, controlled. Breath set tempo. Tempo controlled reaction. Then came timing. Most men lose control not because they feel emotion, but because they respond too fast. Immediate response is obedience. The Japanese trained delay. Not hesitation, measured pause. A fraction of stillness before speech, a breath before movement. That pause broke the chain. Emotion could rise, action did not follow. Structure absorbed the impact. This is why Japanese warriors appeared unshakable, not because they felt nothing, but because emotion never reached behavior. Modern men try to manage emotion internally. They analyze feelings, they rationalize anger, they search for calm. All of this happens too late. The body has already shifted. The voice has already changed. The Japanese never allowed it to start. They built armor, not arguments. Structure was that armor, and armor is tested only under pressure. The Japanese expected provocation. They trained for it, not around it. Any structure that works only in calm is not structure. It is decoration. This is where modern emotional advice collapses. It functions in peaceful conditions and fails the moment conflict becomes personal. Kokoro seigen demanded reliability under attack. If posture broke, training intensified. If breath failed, discipline tightened. If timing rushed, correction followed. There was no comfort here, only command. This is why emotional hijack became rare, not impossible, rare. And rarity changes identity. When emotion repeatedly fails to seize control, it stops attempting. This chapter should feel demanding because it exposes an uncomfortable truth. Emotional control is not achieved through insight. It is achieved through structure that holds under pressure. In the next chapter, I'll show you the final test of Kokoro Seigen. What happens when provocation is deliberate, personal, and relentless? This is where most men lose command permanently, and where the Japanese either held the line or were broken. This is where emotional control is exposed completely. Not in accidental conflict, not in random pressure, but in deliberate provocation. When someone wants a reaction from you, when disrespect is intentional, when the attack is personal, most men collapse here. Because provocation is not aimed at logic, it is aimed at identity. It whispers, "You're being disrespected. You look weak if you don't respond. You must defend yourself now." And most men obey instantly. They speak faster, they raise their voice, they justify, they explain. The moment they do, command is gone. The Japanese understood provocation with ruthless clarity. They believed provocation has only one goal: to force movement. Words alone are harmless. Power appears only when words change behavior. So Kokoro Seigen trained one absolute rule: never give provocation movement. No physical movement, no verbal movement, no emotional movement. Stillness was not passivity, it was denial of access. When provoked, the Japanese did not rush to respond. They did not defend their ego. They did not correct the insult. They did not escalate. They held position. This feels unbearable to modern men, because modern men equate silence with weakness. The Japanese equated silence with dominance. Why? Because provocation feeds on immediacy. If reaction is delayed, provocation weakens. If reaction never arrives, provocation dies. The Japanese trained this deliberately. They exposed themselves to insult, to mockery, to pressure, not to toughen emotion, but to strengthen command. Emotion was allowed to surge, but it was never allowed to move. No facial change, no posture shift, no change in tone. The body remained ordered. This confused opponents, because provocation expects compliance. Silence breaks the script. This is where most men lose control permanently. They believe they must prove something in conflict. The Japanese believed proving was surrender. If you need to prove control, you do not have it. Holding the line means this: you do not move until you decide to move. Not when anger pushes, not when pride burns, not when insult calls. Decision belongs to command. This is why Kokoro Seigen is rare. It demands humiliation without response, pressure without justification, attack without defense. Not forever, but until action serves purpose. Most men cannot endure this. They would rather explode than feel disrespected in silence. The Japanese chose the opposite. They accepted temporary loss of face to preserve absolute command, and command outlives insult. This chapter should make you uncomfortable, because it exposes the final weakness, the need to react. If you cannot hold the line under provocation, emotion owns you. In the final chapter, I'll show you the state the Japanese reached where provocation no longer worked at all. Not because they resisted it, but because it no longer found anything to grab. This is where emotional control stops being something you practice and becomes who you are. At this stage, the Japanese no longer thought about emotions at all, because emotions no longer dictated anything. Kokoro Seigen was no longer a method, it was identity. Emotion could rise: anger, fear, aggression, excitement, but it rose inside boundaries that never moved. And boundaries change everything. Most men think emotional control means feeling less. The Japanese felt fully. They simply refused to let feeling decide action. By now, posture did not collapse under pressure. Breath did not accelerate into reaction. Timing did not rush to satisfy ego. Command had become automatic. No internal debate, no self-talk, no correction. This is the final state. Not calm, not numb, immovable. Conflict no longer shook internal order. Insults lost leverage. Threats lost urgency. Provocation lost its grip. Not because the man was indifferent, but because nothing inside him was unresolved. The Japanese believed conflict can only move a man who is already divided. If ego seeks validation, conflict pulls it. If fear seeks safety, conflict pushes it. If pride seeks recognition, conflict provokes it. Kokoro Seigen removes these dependencies. The man no longer needs to win emotionally, so conflict has nowhere to attach. This is why the final stage looks invisible. There is no dramatic moment, no final test, just a quiet realization. Nothing can rush you anymore. You speak when speech serves purpose. You move when movement is chosen. You act when action is necessary, not when emotion demands it. This is why Japanese masters appeared cold. They were not cold, they were resolved. Resolution ends internal noise. Resolution ends emotional leakage. Resolution ends reactivity. This is what modern men lack. They are capable, they are intelligent, they are driven, but they are unresolved. And unresolved men are easy to move. Kokoro Seigen resolves the inner domain completely. Once resolved, emotional control does not break in conflict because there is nothing left to break. This is the end of the path, not self-help, not anger management, not emotional intelligence, command. Command over self comes before command over anything else. And once command is established, conflict loses its power because it no longer decides who you are.